Today is Friday the 3rd, which is not Friday the 13th, but it is the year 2014, and the month is January. The first month, the third day of 14. Many days ago, it started to rain. There were 8 people in a boat that it had taken over 100 years to build. A man had built that boat, and it was built to float. Yep, it was built to float. I don't know how things went for 40 days. All I know is it rained. And at the end of 40 days, the rain stopped. Half of 40 days is 20 days. Yep, I do know that much. And we are now in the year 2014. That is not 2014 years past the day it stopped raining. But it is 2014 years, really close, since there was a resurrection of a man from the dead. And since that man has been raised from the dead, a gospel has been preached, because that was why he was raised from the dead, so that a gospel could be preached. And this gospel is the gospel of the kingdom. The kingdom of which I am speaking of at this time is the kingdom that will come after the resurrection of the dead and a judgment. Because there will be a judgment when the dead are raised. And it will be the final judgment. Until then, there will be judgments made every day. So there will not be a day that goes by without judgments being made. And many have misjudged the character of God. And when I say that, I'm not talking about cartoon characters or something like that. I'm talking about how God is. And God is as He is. And no man can change God, because God won't be changed. And God doesn't change clothes. You know, God does not have to change clothes. People change clothes, and people wear clothes, and people drive cars, and people ride in planes. Those are some things that people do. God does not drive cars, ride in planes, or change clothes. Now, He can change a situation, and he can change whatever he desires to change. And it won't take him long to change it. I was just now reminded of a man who wrote a letter to a friend of his, I suppose. And I believe the letter was written by Luke, a person named Luke. And he wrote a letter, and we can read that letter, and it shows to be titled Acts, A-C-T-S, Acts. And it contains a lot of words, but it is written so that some people can read and understand. Things that were said years ago have been written down so that we can read them today. Reading them today is not the same as hearing them when they were written. So we are reading what is written, and we can find out what happened. That's why we have history books. And the greatest history book that you can buy is titled Bible. It starts in the beginning and it goes to the end. And at the end, there will be a resurrection of the dead and a judgment. And then we will go into another age. I have reached the age of 66. And if I live a few more months, I will be 67. And if by chance there are a few more years, I will make 70. People of all ages are here on the earth. And one day there was a man on the earth who said, I am the Son of God. This man was born to be a king. And he will be a king. Born to be a king does not mean a king came here. So don't be confused. There's a lot of confusion about babies and, when they're born and, what they're for and what they do. But Jesus was born. He lived here. He died here. And God raised him from the dead. And after God raised him from the dead, you can read in the book about him and what God's plan is for him. Now, God had real good plans for a lot of people, because God has good plans for people. But people really do not get involved with God's plan that often. And they will not do God's will. And the will of God was one thing that Jesus of Nazareth did. And if there was anything that he told his disciples to do, was that they should do the will of God. What is it? Are you doing it? We'll find out, because it will be made known. Yep.